From the Channel Seed Studios. Welcome to The Hook. A look behind the lines with Mike Palm and Ken Miller. Powered by Circa Sports Iowa. Sports betting the way it should be. This is Iowa Everywhere.
Channel Seed. Seedsmanship at work.
And hello again, everyone, and welcome to this week's edition of The Hook. I'm Ken Miller, that fella deep in thought. Well, that's Mike Palm, the Vice President of Operations at Circa Sports. Coming up on the program, we'll go inside the numbers, take a look at what we're seeing NFL, college football-wise, as we creep closer. Well, actually, a week from tomorrow, week 0 will be upon us. A small slate of games, some better than others, but heck, it's football, and we haven't had college football since Georgia won their second straight national championship, so I think everybody's chomping at the bit to see that. Hello, Mike Palm. Good to see you. How are you?
Hello, Ken Miller. How are you? Recovered from your trip out here to the desert?
You know, it takes me about 2 days, Mike. But after, get to about Wednesday or Thursday, if someone says you want to go back, okay, I'm in. Don't bounce back like I used to, but it's so much fun. And again, thank you for the hospitality. We can't sing Circus praises loud enough as we do both on the radio and here on Iowa Everywhere. In fact, there's a group of Iowa Everywhere, including our producer, Aiden Wyatt, who's making his maiden voyage out to Circa next weekend. He's going to be there, and I know they're all pumped up.
Well, wait a minute, though. Is Aiden 21?
Yeah, well, yeah. Okay. Well, he just slides over that number.
Yeah.
But that's a good point because it's 21 and over, right?
Yeah, it is. It certainly is.
So when, let's go back to that because I remember you talking about that when you guys had the Mountain West football media days. The SIDs and the football coaches had to be cognizant of that as to who they were going to bring with you, correct? Because assumingly, since everybody was upstairs, they were all met that 21 threshold.
Yeah, some of them were fifth-year offensive linemen. Some, it was good. They liked that because it was a way to reward those guys that have been with the program for a while, and a lot of distractions out of the way they didn't have to deal with, and so. I think we're real close to inking that deal for 2 to 3 years down the road. Who knows? We might have 4 more schools by the time they come back next year from Northern California up. It's
going to be so different next year. I mean, we tell people all the time, enjoy this year, right? Because after this year, the Big Ten gets Washington, Oregon, USC, and UCLA. The Oklahoma, Texas ship off to the SEC. The Big 12 gets the addition of the 4 corner schools, Utah, Colorado, Arizona, and Arizona State. College football is going to be different. College sports are going to be different next year, but this year it's one more year of, status quo.
And they get the other schools too, right? They get the Houston and BYU and all that too, right? I mean,
that's this year.
That's this year. Okay.
Yeah.
So they'll have 8 new schools from last year to when they play next year.
Yep. And lose 2.
Yeah.
Lose the Sooners and the Longhorns. Let's talk college football. What are you seeing? I mean, it's we've talked before. It's such a bad future bet because you can't get excited about Georgia. They're too short. If not Georgia, is it Michigan? Is it USC? I mean, is there a double-digit team that's getting any play at all?
Little Florida State love.
Okay.
We saw a little bit of Clemson. Those are sort of mutually exclusive, though, because, you're not going to they play each other and fairly early in the year.
Mm-hmm.
But no, not really, Kenny. It's a really depressed national championship market this year.
Yeah.
We'll get Michigan money because of our connection with Derek and
right.
all the Michigan people that come here. I think we'll get some Michigan money, but that's about it.
So let's fast forward and kind of try and look into the future. We go from a 14 playoff to a 12. We're still going to have Alabama and Georgia and Michigan or Ohio State, but will that open up the markets a little bit just because there'll be more teams?
Yeah, there'll be more teams, but there'll probably be Power 5 second and third place teams.
Mm-hmm.
What will like the group of 6? Maybe now instead of having none, they get 1. Will they get 2 out of 12? It will be interesting to see. But I think in a lot of cases, those now teams that are second in Power 5 conferences are live to get in. So, and it probably won't be those where there's divisions. Michigan beats Ohio State and then they beat Iowa. Ohio State's going to the thing is, they'll get in. They'll get in.
Mhm.
They lose that game, it won't even matter. Michigan, Ohio State, only
Nope.
for seeding. It'll matter
Right.
for seeding. So in
Yeah,
Georgia,
conference.
Alabama, if they played in the right, you know how it goes
Sure.
it's just going to be a seeding deal.
Yeah, the conference championship weekend, the first weekend in December, which now means something. It's, I don't want to say irrelevant because it's football and we'll watch and we'll wager. But as you mentioned, the stakes aren't,
No,
they aren't there because they're both
no.
going to find a way into the playoff.
Only for the underdog. Only for the
Yeah,
team that's got 2 losses and is a
that's fair.
touchdown or 10-point underdog. It's their playoff game.
Yeah, indeed it is. Before we get more into sports, I want to just shift gears for just a second. It just popped up on my screen. This weather that's coming out there. So it's hurricane. I believe they've named it Hillary.
Yeah.
Will it get to Las Vegas? I know California is bracing.
Well, it won't be considered still a hurricane by the time it gets that far inland, but it'll be a tropical storm or something. But we're expecting to get hit pretty hard. It was projected Saturday might be the worst day. It's looking now like Sunday. It says 100% rain Sunday, right? 80%
Wow.
Saturday, 100% rain, and Monday 60% flood. There'll be flood warnings.
Mm-hmm.
There might be flood warnings for 48 hours. I mean, because when there's a thunderstorm warning, we don't get thunderstorm. We get flood warning, flash flood
Right.
warning, because
Yeah.
when you get precipitation, and now, like Sunday, which is the worst day, they're saying 4/5 of an inch of rain. Well, that's a lot of rain here because
Mm-hmm.
there's nowhere to go. It's rock. So
Yeah.
it just runs, right? It just runs to the low points. It runs from all
Mm-hmm.
the higher points to the low points. And I know they've created these tunnels and, the washes or whatever, and this and
Yeah.
that to try to control it. But, people drown every year because they live on the street. And then, I talked to you about that by the link.
Yeah.
The water gets 8 feet high. It's
Terrible.
It's awful.
Mm-hmm.
And it floods. You can't drive. You can't get in, and all that access to the.
And that's where the Ubers are, Mike. I experienced it once.
Yeah.
And you have to go into the parking garage of the link, and that's where the rain goes down. So does that water, I mean, this is my Canadian showing in some respect. Will that water make its way to Lake Mead eventually? Because I mean, you've seen the depth of Lake Mead seemingly going down, down, down. When you fly in, you can actually see the rock where the water used to be, and now it's all white. From where there's no longer any depth there, any water. Will it get there?
Through the system, the sewer system, and the cleaning it and all that, yes, a certain portion will. You know what drains Lake Mead is not taking long showers, right?
What
Those
is it?
are closed loop systems in your homes and in hotels. It's strictly all the water you use outdoors. That's not contained within a system. So watering your lawn and your plants and your swimming pools are what eats up. I think the number is 97% of the erosion of the water.
This is maybe going a little bit too in depth, but when I stay in a hotel now, I mean, there were most times I'd had housekeeping every single day. You know what I'm paying for? Come on and change my towels and make my bed. If it's now I'm reusing towels. Are you seeing much of that? Are people conserving because of the fear that's out there that we have to start, cutting everybody, regardless of where you are? But in a tourist destination in Las Vegas, do you guys notice that?
Most places don't have the housekeeping staff to change the linens every day. They just don't do it, and unless people are staying 5 or more days, you don't really get an in-trip housekeeping visit unless you request it.
Yeah.
I don't know. I like what we do when we travel. We have 3 small children, but I want towels because we take frequent showers, and I don't want to reuse a towel more than once. And if we're going to shower 6 hours apart, it's not going to be dry. So I always say the only thing we want, we don't need the beds changed. We don't need this and that, vacuum, all this. Just make sure we have two sets of fresh towels every morning. When you come, that's all. So you save some on the bedding because we're not constantly changing the bedding.
Right. Gotcha. Mm-hmm. All right. Well, let's get back to sports. Sorry we went down that path, but I just found that question interesting. So NFL preseason is going on last night, Thursday night preseason standalone game. We had the Browns and the Eagles. Eagles one of the favorites to win the Super Bowl. Browns, one of those teams that I think people still gravitate to. I think they're your father's team, your grandfather's team in a lot of ways, the Brownies, if you're not from there. What does that do in the book? What does that do business-wise as far as right? And can you compare it to, another standalone event? We're talking about the NFL here, even though it is preseason.
It probably does around 1/6 to 1/5 of the right of an NFL game, these preseason games. There's smaller limits and not just, then the totals get bet more. If you're trying to handicap how quick are the second and third teams getting in there, right? And we knew last night because the coaches told us that we were going to play the two quarterbacks the whole first half,
right?
DTR and Mariota. So you knew that, and that game got steamed over from 34.5 to 37.5, and then it fell in the middle there. But I think the median total from the first week to the second week of the NFL preseason went up like 3.2 points.
Okay.
Because we saw some overs in the first week, which we normally don't really see in the preseason.
So you're adjusting.
Yes, there was definite adjustment.
Yeah. And then, there's only 3 now. So, obviously week 4 in the past used to be meaningless. None of the starters would play.
Right.
And the totals would be much lower. What will you do between weeks 2 and week 3? Again, do you anticipate movement?
It'll be interesting to see. I think we won't see nearly as much movement, right? The fourth week used to be all the guys they were going to cut and all that. We're going to
right.
I mean, those games were sometimes, like they almost played with a running clock, right? They were just they weren't to get anybody injured.
Just get out of here.
Yeah. Not quite the case now with only 3 games. But at the same time, it made week 3, the first half, a real game almost, right? They played all the starters through at least a half of week 3. So you sort of had delineation there. I always think it's interesting to see if Baltimore will continue to keep winning however many 20-some straight games and covering almost 75% of them is an interesting thing to see. But I don't get a whole lot out of the preseason.
A lot of people like this Ravens team to go a long way in a stacked AFC. In a stacked division, for crying out loud. Never mind the AFC North in its own right. I mean, I can literally make a case for all 4 teams in the North. Where are you on the Ravens?
Kenny, it's interesting because you can make an argument that all 4 of the North and 3 of the East will make the playoffs. Well, there's only 7 teams, right? And there's going to be a champion from the West and a champion from the South.
Yep.
And maybe a wild card. Maybe your Chargers get a wild card.
I was going to say maybe the Chiefs get the wild card.
But out of those 7 playoff spots, only 4 or maybe 5 are available for those 7 teams. So who are the teams that aren't going to make it? Some people even argue, the Patriots said this, got a shot to get.
Trent does.
But then who are the 4 out of the 8? There's going to be 4 disappointed teams. Right? 4 teams aren't going to make it out of those 8.
Yeah,
maybe 5, So it's really hard to say. I think if you wanted just to make a bet to make the playoffs out of the 8, I might take Cincinnati as the surest bet. They've been right there with Kansas City at They beat them 1 year in Arrowhead, right? I mean, they dominated the Bills last year in that playoff game.
Yeah.
And then who's second? To me, maybe it's Cleveland. It's between 3 teams: Cleveland, Baltimore, Miami, who I would put in the second spot. I'm pretty high on Miami. I just don't know if I can have the courage to bet when, Tua's next hit might be his last.
Yeah, I'm with you. I love that team too. You didn't mention the Kansas City Chiefs. It's tough to repeat.
Well, they're going to be. Come on. They're just too good. Kenny, they're just too good. That kid is just too good. That head coach is just too good. That place kicker is a witch. And the place kicker is very, very good.
Yes.
And the defense just does enough to get off the field a few times. You know what I mean? They play very complimentary. I mean, the team is so darn good. Philadelphia dominated the first half of that Super Bowl. Hurts had the fumble that was returned that kept Kansas City in it. But let's be honest, Kansas City was the better team in the second half. The Eagles could not get them off the field.
Yeah, you're right. Are the Eagles, in your mind, are they better than the Niners? Are they better than the Cowboys?
Well, come on with the Cowboys. Enough already.
You're not buying the Cowboys, huh?
Come on. Well, whatever. So what? They'll go 13-3 and they'll lose in the first round. Who cares?
They could.
Relevant to the Super Bowl question. Betting
Yeah.
future, win totals, division, maybe. I don't. Not really.
I bet a couple of exactas with the Cowboys. That's where I use the Cowboys for big prices.
KC over Dallas.
KC over Dallas, Chargers over Dallas, Bengals over Dallas.
What was the Chargers over Dallas? 200.
It was big, like 175 or something.
It's missing a zero, Kenny.
Yeah.
It's missing a zero. I think Philadelphia deserves to be the favorite.
I do too.
Now they have a lot. They have a lot to overcome.
You made the point very early after the season ended last year when the coaching carousel stopped and both coordinators were gone.
Pretty important.
It is.
Pretty important. It's tough to overcome. The curse of the Super Bowl loser.
Yep.
You're replacing your backfield. There's some things. We still saw, forget the injury. The sample size was still pretty short on Purdy. But he played very well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I think there's a big advantage your rookie year to having all those starts in college.
Yeah.
I didn't know how much that carries through once you get into your second and third years.
Mm-hmm.
But look, I mean, if they think they're going to play Trey Lance, then the Eagles should be even money. If you told me today that Trey Lance would start 12 games for the Niners, I'd go out and bet everything I could on the Eagles at 3-1. To win the NFC.
Yeah.
Purdy's got to be the guy.
To
me, you're right,
Yeah.
and yet maybe people get a book on him and here and there. I hope they do well. I think they should win that division. I mean, Seattle was decent. And remember, Seattle had them down at half in the playoff game.
You're right. Yep.
But Seattle has to stick to the running game. They can't – when you're going to just drop Geno Smith back and throw the ball 30 times, that ain't happening.
No.
The Rams are going to be god-awful. And Arizona will be. You talked about on the radio this morning, who's the worst team if it's not Arizona. Could be in their own division. It could be the Rams.
It could be.
It actually could be the Rams. Could be the Raiders.
I heard something the other day that if the Rams are bad, the Rams are going to look to get out from Aaron Donald. Try and get something for him because he might not be long for the league. I mean, he's been threatening retirement. And does he want to spend his last couple of months on a team that's going nowhere? I highly doubt it.
It's interesting. I'm actually a little surprised he's back this year.
Yeah, I am too.
What's his window?
Rebuild.
2 years tops?
Yeah.
So I don't think he ever, even if he plays 3 years, do they even get back to the playoffs in 3 years? This is a total rebuild. Yeah. They went all in to win a Super Bowl, and by God, they did. But they're going to pay the price for the next half a decade. If you ask the fans, I think they would be okay with the deal.
Without a doubt. Without a doubt. It's all about the parade. It's all about the ring. It's all about your team buying your championship gear. And the team they beat, I mean, Cincinnati gave them everything they wanted in that game.
Could have won the game.
Could have won the game.
Very easily could have won the game. Could have won the AFC Championship. I mean, Cincinnati's been right there. And none of it starts unless Tannehill gets picked off 3 times in that divisional game. Or we're not even talking about this run of Cincinnati, maybe. Who knows?
That's a good point. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. All right, baseball is we're on the precipice of moving into September. I love August baseball. I do. I get into it. I can't believe the Cubs lost at home against the lowly Kansas City Royals. You know, Trent threw something on the radio today, threw a trivia question at me. I'm going to throw it at you. There are 3 teams in Major League Baseball. If you bet every one of those teams on the money line this year, if you bet these 3 teams, you would be ahead. Do you have any idea what 3 teams, if you would have bet them every game on the money line so far this season, would be ahead?
So only 3, you're saying?
3 of them, yep.
Well, you're supposing that Kansas City's one of them, I guess, or the Cubs. The Cubs.
But, I'm surprised too.
But Kansas City has lost, I guess, 80 games already. So, Baltimore?
Yeah, that's one. Yep, they're the most profitable. The 2 others I didn't get. I got Baltimore. I did not get the other 2. And one of them, Mike, is having a horrible season. But because they pop up with a big price beside their name and they win every now and then, they've rewarded their backers. Both National League.
Really? The Marlins?
No, that's my guess too.
Really?
Yep, that was my
Marlins
guess.
are not a positive.
Marlins are not a positive, apparently, because they got too hot there for a while and the price went down.
The D-backs.
My second guess.
So we guessed the same three.
We guessed the same three. Yeah.
The Pirates.
No, you're in the right division.
Well, the Reds aren't having an awful year.
That's their second.
They're the second best.
They're the second best, and the third best team is well below 500. In fact, they're in last place in their division.
It can't be the Cardinals.
It's not.
Because they were favorites early in the year when they were losing. So it can't be the Cardinals.
Yep.
How could it be the Rockies? I don't think
it's not. It's the Nationals.
They've made a lot of hay lately, though.
Lately, right?
They've been beating teams as a $2 dog lately.
Yep, and that's apparently what.
If you'd have gave me 8 guesses, I might not have got the Nationals.
I think we killed a whole segment at one point on the show today doing that.
Yeah.
What do you noticing baseball wise?
Well, I have no tickets on the Dodgers, and here they are 11 in a row.
I know it.
And I bet them last night just because every night they're 250, and then they were so short last night. I said they're playing so well, and Lance Lynn pitched well both starts for them.
He's been great.
They made the price so low, I had to bet him.
Yeah.
And now tonight it's very low.
Who are they playing?
They're playing Miami, but it's Alcantara who just come off the. You're almost, but it's Gonsolin. I'm almost tempted to bet him again. They're only 123 tonight, and I almost never bet him. But when you drop the price so much, I tell you who I did bet tonight. This game hasn't gone, so if people watch this when Aiden posts this, I'm all over Lugo and the Padres tonight. I bet it yesterday in the look ahead at 160.
And they've got the Diamondbacks?
Yeah, that Fod, he's 0-6 and ERA is 7. He used to pitch in Reno. I like the Padres a heck of a lot. I even would play them on the run line as a home team tonight. That's my big baseball play today.
Can they sneak into the wild card, the Padres? They're 5 games out of the wild card?
Too many teams to pass, I think.
Ahead of them, yeah.
Too many teams to pass.
Uh-huh.
And the bullpen has not gotten any. He's still blowing games, So I just think this is the lost season for them.
I think it is. I think the Mets and the Padres.
And I don't know what's the magic pill either. Like, you're going to revamp the pitching staff's okay, but you don't have an ace.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Darvish is not an ace. Snell might win the Cy Young, although the kid in Arizona beat San Diego last night 3-1.
Yeah.
So Gallen kind of, I thought, put a foot ahead again.
Yeah.
If you look at Snell, because he has such a high pitch count, he doesn't get a lot of quality starts because he doesn't get to 6 innings.
Mm-hmm.
He's almost trying to strike out everybody. So if people look at that, I don't know how much they look at it. Obviously, if you started the year on June 1st, you'd give it to him. But I don't know. I think it's very interesting. Texas and Houston, that race in the AL West, I think it's vitally important to get that first round bye.
Yep.
They're close. I don't know if Houston can get over the hump. There just seems to be something missing there. And Scherzer's pitched well. Scherzer's been better than Verlander on the trade out of the Mets.
Right. Yeah.
It's interesting. Scherzer came right out and said, the GM told him, we're not going to try to win for 2 years.
Right, yeah.
He was very honest with him. So
he was. Yep.
I'm waving it. I want to go. I want to pitch a playoff game. I guess. But what does that do to your fan base when you tell that comes out? We're going to. Cohen says tear it down for the next 2 years.
Yeah. Pete Alonso's probably going to be playing somewhere else next year, I would imagine, right?
Gotta be. I'm watching him play now. I think he's like a dead man walking there.
That franchise, and I love watching those. I love the broadcast in that game.
Oh, that's so good.
I think they're so good.
So good. You know who's so good? You know who I will watch whether the team's good or not? I would watch the Mets.
Yep.
The Padres.
Yeah.
And the Giants.
Or Solo. I don't watch. Who's the that Dave Fleming? Does he do Giants games?
Yeah. Dave Fleming. Yeah. They're very good, the Giants booth.
Mm-hmm.
And Miller. And John Miller still does.
Oh, does he still do some games?
He doesn't do them all.
Right.
But Miller does a lot. So, I mean, I would listen. I also like Dwayne Stats a lot with Tampa Bay.
Do you?
And I hate to watch games.
He's been there forever.
Tropicana is so damn ugly, that field,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
you know. But I'll listen because I love his voice, Dwayne Stats. And it's just like the guy in San Jose, the Sharks announcer, Randy Hahn. So
Yeah.
good. I hate the Sharks, but I'll listen because his voice is so good.
Well, you know who my team's broadcaster is? Dan Schulman, who did ESPN Sunday Night Baseball. I mean, I'm spoiled because Schulman's pretty darn good.
Oh, he's really good. Yeah, you've had great broadcasters. What Buck Martinez did, you know?
Yeah, he's color guy now.
Really good, really good. Yeah, and Schulman's a national guy.
Yeah, he's
with another great voice.
He is, absolutely is. Let's get out of here on this. I want to remind you of something. It was about this time last year that you picked you identified the Boston Bruins. No one won more games in the history of the league in the regular season. I got bounced in the first round, but
we're up 3-1. We're up
3-1, right, to the Panthers, and then lost. Have you identified this year's Bruins yet?
Ken, you know what? That play was a General Jim Montgomery play, first year, new team.
Buddy, your guy. Yeah.
It was. Now it's different second, and there got a lot of guys retiring. So I would have to go and study. I will really have to study, and I haven't had time. August is like it's September for us. We're just so busy. I got a Keno slot tournament going on here. I got 7 meetings today. It's just, and I got the panel I have to prepare for next week. So, I need I like to take 3 to 4 hours and do a division at a time and then an overall picture.
Okay.
That's the way I do it, just like I do baseball.
Yeah.
So I really need a week that I can just sit down every night and spend some time. And maybe that's kind of like after next Saturday, I can sit down that week where heading into Labor Day where I can do that.
Well, next weekend, the Iowa Everywhere crew is going to be out there. Chris Williams, Chris Hassel, our guy Aiden Wyatt's going to be there. A couple others making their way out there.
Send that weather girl. We need her this weekend.
Absolutely. Amber Alexander. I mean, you guys are going to get clobbered. So what does it come up through California and then make its way into Nevada? That's how it's going?
Baja and Mexico, then up through California. Yep.
Holy mackerel. Well, buckle up, my friend. Good to see you last weekend. Had a blast. Sitting down there in the booth and BSing with you was fun. And that was a pretty good time. How are entries for Millions and Survivor?
I think we're close to 300 today. I mean, I was sitting in the book for 30 minutes before we had our credit meeting. I mean, they're just, the proxies are walking them down like, they're ushers. They're walking people down. It's, I just got a text, evacuating stadium swim, heavy rain and winds right now. So, my wife said she was headed to pick up my stepdaughter from school, and she said that she got soaked just walking the few feet from the school to the car. Let me get you it'll only take a second, Kenny. I'll get you the up-to-the-date count.
Absolutely.
We went over 2,000 in the Millions today. I know that.
Which has got to be ahead of last year, right?
And I know we were over 3,500. So today we've done 290, and it's only 430, right? 430 out here. Current Millions count is 2,015 and 3,545 in Survivor, 5,560 total.
Trending, pacing well above last year?
I still think we're going to get to 10,000 on Survivor, and it'll be a photo finish probably. It'll be the two Derby winners hitting the wire together, and the
That's
Millions.
Next week, by the way. The Travers. How good is that going to be? All 3 Triple Crown winners facing off against each other.
Terrific Travers this year.
Going to be appointment TV. Good to see you, Mike Palm. Thanks for doing this. The crew's going to be out there, so we'll figure out a time, hopefully, that works with your schedule. We'll do this again next week. Thank you for watching Iowa Everywhere. It's brought to you by our friends at Circus Sports. Circa, download the app here in the state of Iowa, coming soon to Illinois. And if you're watching Colorado, it's there now, Nevada as well. See you next time. Have a wonderful weekend here. For Mike Palm, I'm Ken Miller. See you.